Welcome back to Nordic Arms History. Today we're covering Greenland during World War II. We'll be talking about what made it such a strategic important area. We'll be talking about the resources there and the weather stations, which are really interesting. Let's begin. The fall of Denmark in 1940 left Greenland in an uncertain and precarious position. An unoccupied territory of an occupied nation. For centuries, Greenland had been the most remote outpost of Denmark, its vast ice fields and treacherous coastlines isolating it from the world. However, with World War II unfolding and Nazi Germany's expansion through Europe, Greenland found itself thrust into the global spotlight. The island's strategic location and its rich natural resources, particularly the Cryolite mine in Iviktut, drew the attention of both the Allies and the Axis powers. Greenland, although remote, occupied a vital position in the North Atlantic. Its proximity to both North America and Europe made it an ideal stepping stone for transatlantic air routes and a key outpost for monitoring and controlling shipping lanes. Before World War II, the island was home to only a few thousand Greenlanders, Danish settlers, and explorers. Despite its isolation, Greenland was essential for Danish trade as a colony, but it was far from a focal point of global affairs. This all changed with the outbreak of war in Europe. As Denmark fell to Nazi Germany, Greenland suddenly became a prize of strategic importance. The British, Canadians, and Germans all eyed the island for its potential role in dominating the North Atlantic. Despite Denmark's occupation, Greenland refused to fall under Nazi control, thanks in large part to its remote location and the swift actions of local Danish authorities. The crucial turning point came with the involvement of the United States. While officially neutral at the time of Denmark's fall in 1940, the United States quickly recognized Greenland's importance and sought to ensure it did not fall into German hands. Under the leadership of Danish Governor Eske Brun and Danish Consul Henrik Kaufmann in Washington, Greenland declared itself a self-governing territory. This allowed it to sever its ties with occupied Denmark and enter into agreements with foreign powers. Central to Greenland's newfound importance was the Cryolite mine in Iviktut, located in southwestern Greenland. Cryolite is a rare mineral critical for aluminum production, a resource vital to the war effort, particularly in the production of aircraft. The mine at Iviktut was one of the only sources of this material in the world, and the Allies were determined to secure it at all costs. The U.S. government, recognizing the significance of the Cryolite mine, took immediate steps to protect it. The U.S. Coast Guard began patrolling Greenland's waters, ensuring that shipments of cryolite would continue to flow into the United States without interference. In addition, the Coast Guard established small garrisons near the mine to prevent any German raids or sabotage efforts. The importance of the Cryolite mine cannot be overstated. Without it, the aluminum production in the United States would be severely limited, crippling the aircraft industry at the time when air superiority was critical to the war's outcome. With the U.S. now committed to safeguarding Greenland, a series of agreements between Greenland's self-declared government and Washington saw the island transformed into a strategic military outpost. The construction of U.S. air bases and weather stations began in earnest in 1941, following President Franklin D. Roosevelt's approval of an executive agreement that granted the U.S. military full access to Greenland's territory. The air bases, codenamed Bluey West and Bluey East, became crucial links in the chain of transatlantic air routes. These bases not only served as refueling stations for bombers en route to England, but also as vital points for weather forecasting. Meteorological data was essential for planning naval and aerial operations in the North Atlantic, and the weather stations in Greenland proved critical intelligence to the Allies. Greenland's weather stations were among the few capable of providing accurate data on often unpredictable North Atlantic storms. Information was crucial for both Allied convoys and military operations. While the U.S. presence in Greenland grew, so did the need for local defense. Greenland's vast, inhospitable terrain made traditional defense measures impossible. Instead, Greenland's authorities relied on the local population to patrol the island's remote regions. These men formed what would later be known as the Sirius Dog Sled Patrol, an elite unit that used sled dogs to traverse Greenland's icy wilderness. The Sirius Patrol was tasked with patrolling Greenland's eastern coast, where German forces had attempted to establish weather stations. These patrols were grueling, often lasting months and covering hundreds of miles of frozen, desolate terrain. The men of the Sirius Patrol became the island's first line of defense, providing intelligence to the U.S. military and, when necessary, engaging in direct combat with German forces. The most famous of these encounters came in 1943 when the patrol discovered a German weather station on Sabine Island. After tense confrontation, the patrol destroyed the station and captured its crew, effectively ending the German presence in Greenland. Despite Greenland's growing ties with the United States, Germany did not abandon its attempts to use the island for its own purposes. As early as 1940, the German Navy began sending U-boats to the waters around Greenland in an attempt to disrupt Allied shipping. While Greenland's isolation protected it from direct invasion, the Germans recognized the island's strategic importance and launched several covert operations to establish weather stations along its eastern coast. These weather stations were critical to the German war effort, as they provided vital data for U-boat operations and air raids over the North Atlantic. The first German expedition to Greenland in 1942 was detected by the Allies, but the Germans managed to withdraw before an attack could be launched. However, the Germans were persistent, and subsequent expeditions in 1943 and 1944 successfully established temporary weather stations. The Sirius Patrol, often operating under extreme conditions, hunted down these stations and, in several instances, captured or destroyed them. Another one of the Sirius Patrol's discoveries was the German weather station Holzhauge, established in August 1942 at Hansa Bay. This station remained undetected until March 11, 1943, when a Sirius patrol team stumbled upon it. It was the first armed confrontation between German forces and the Greenlandic Patrol. One Dane was killed in the firefight, and this marked the beginning of the Sirius Patrol's direct engagements with the enemy on Greenlandic soil. While the Sirius Patrol handled the defense of Greenland's remote regions, the U.S. Coast Guard took responsibility for patrolling its coastal waters. The Coast Guard's Greenland Patrol, officially established in 1942, was tasked with monitoring the island's shores, escorting supply ships, and providing logistical support to U.S. military bases. The patrol operated in some of the most challenging conditions of war, with icebergs, treacherous seas, and constant threat of German U-boats making each mission a dangerous endeavor. One of the most significant operations undertaken by the Greenland Patrol was the protection of convoys transporting cryolite from the Iviktut mine to the United States. These convoys were prime targets for German submarines, and several attacks occurred during the war. The Coast Guard, working in tandem with the U.S. Navy, was able to repel most of these attacks, ensuring that the vital supply of cryolite continued to flow. By the end of World War II, Greenland had undergone a transformation. From a remote, isolated Danish colony, it had become a strategic asset of global importance. The U.S. military presence on the island had modernized its infrastructure, and Greenland's role in the war had helped to cement its place in the post-World War order. The air bases, weather stations, and ports built during the war would continue to play a vital role in the Cold War that followed, as Greenland remained a key outpost for the United States in its efforts to contain Soviet influence in the Arctic.
War's dramatic action reaches the far north as Coast Guardsmen blast their way through ice floes off Greenland in an attempt to break up establishment of Nazi bases. The hunt went on for 2 months, just a few hundred miles from the North Pole. Among the Navy Task Force objectives were armed German trawlers and a heavily mined radio and weather station in service on the island. The relentless search continued day and night. 60 Nazi prisoners were taken. Hidden in icy caves, much scientific equipment was captured, along with the crew of the Nazi weather station. From this point, valuable information had been radioed to enemy planes and bases. 2 Coast Guard cutters tracked down a brand new 180-foot Nazi trawler and cornered her in the ice. One trawler was scuttled by its crew, who were taken aboard the cutter Northland. During the Arctic operation, a third armed trawler and another enemy installation were discovered. Both had been abandoned a short time before, and both were destroyed by our task force. Fighting the heavy drifts, the Northland finally smashed her rudder, and only heroic effort saved her from enemy attack. These are Coast Guard and newsreel pictures. A prize crew brought the captured trawler Echsensteiner to Boston. Boarded before the German crew had time to set off demolition charges, the ship is complete in every detail. Rocket launchers and 37mm guns were part of her armor. Our vital mid-Atlantic base is safe, thanks to the unceasing vigilance of the Greenland Patrol.
Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions regarding Greenland, or you have any stories you want to share about Greenland, consider leaving a comment down below. Also, if you feel like this video deserves it, consider leaving it a like. Also, if you want to learn more about Nordic Arms and history, consider subscribing. Until the next one, take care. Bye-bye.